So with that, I think it's a good time to go ahead and start. I want to welcome everyone to the webinar today, the I in BIM, how to transfer data to and from Revit. I want to thank and welcome Nirva Fereshetian, the Chief Information Officer and Associate Principal with CBT, as well as the Design Technology team at CBT Architects in Boston. I'm also located in Boston, even though we're at two physical different locations at the moment, but I've had the pleasure to see many of the projects from CBT Architects firsthand, and I've always admired their work. Their main office is in Boston, but their work is all over the United States and international as well. And in fact, Nirva and the team are going to give a little introduction of the work at CBT Architects. So they've been using Ideate Software for about 3 years, and we've asked them to run through several of their workflow processes with Ideate Software to showcase the productivity and the improvements they've experienced implementing Ideate Software. They have the full suite of our ID8 software solutions, and today they're going to cover some examples with ID8 BIM Link, ID8 Xray, and ID8 Explorer. I'm just so excited and thrilled to introduce Nirva and the team at CBT Architects. So I'm going to now unmute you guys. So welcome, Boston. Are you in the house?
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes, Boston, home of the champions. So thank you very much, Richard, for that introduction. My name is Nirva Fereshetian. I'm the Chief Information Officer at CBT, and I have our design technology team with us, William Paquette, Lynn Quagliato, and Ruth Vincent. And we are hoping to make this a session to show some of the productivity gains we've had using ID8. And I think Richard already gave a brief intro to our firm. So CBT is a Boston-based design firm, and we have about 230 architects, interior designers, urban planners, and we've been in business for 51 years and played an important role in broad range of projects in diverse settings. We work nationally and internationally on projects that range from urban district development to hospitality environments, multifamily, residential, corporate, workplace, civic, and academic projects. With that, with the description of our practice, we want to move on to what our design technology team does, and we support our office through multitude of design tools, and Revit is one of our primary tools, and a lot of our efforts go there, with accompanying many other plugins and things that makes our process more efficient, one of which is ID8. But we regularly run lunch sessions on all of the practices and processes we do, and the intent is really to make use of the products we have purchased. The simplest part is really to purchase the product, but the more challenging part is to validate its use, make sure that everyone understands how to use it, make sure that we are continuously up to date with the recent improvements. We keep running sessions over and over again over a period of 6 months to introduce the new features, make sure that the tools are used effectively. So purchasing the product is the first step, but the more challenge is to make sure that the different people are aware and what types of issues it resolves, and what kind of improvements that makes to our workflow. So in the presentation, our team members are going to show kind of work in all scales that ID8 tools have helped us in resolving individual model issues to really complex project problems, and then overall how we use these tools and others into office-wide model management processes and proactively supporting our teams and our Revit projects. So the first will be Ruth.
Hi, so I'm going to be going over Ideate Xray. A common problem that our users face when they go to place an object in a view is that it's nowhere to be found. Often, Revit will give you a warning telling you that the object you place is not visible, but this warning never tells you why the object's not visible. Typically, our users will email us asking us to locate these hidden objects and to find out what's causing the problem. Our team then goes through a checklist of about 20 items to troubleshoot the issue: work sets, filters, model types. In the example images you see on the right side of the screen, the user is trying to locate a CAD file that they just brought in. The top image shows an initial warning that Revit gives you, and the bottom image shows the more detailed warning dialog that you get from clicking into the warning. So with Ideate Xray, we can select the ID number from the Revit warning dialog and quickly find what's causing the element to not show up. Ideate Xray goes through a process of checking all of the elements and settings that we would check manually and identifies the potential problem within seconds. And here's a video of that running. So within 5 seconds, it finds it. And actually, if you look at the bottom right of the screen, right about here, you can see all the settings that Ideate Xray is going through. Just yesterday, we used Xray on a lighting device family and found that there were several reasons why the elements weren't visible. And this is huge because going through and finding each one of these warnings or each one of these mistakes would have been a real timely process or a time suck to find each one of these. And it saved us potentially 30 minutes to find this. For our team, using Ideate Xray means that we can get our teams back to designing and spend less time on finding hidden elements. And I'm going to be passing it over to BIM Link. This is Lynn.
All right. Hi, I'm Lynn. I'm actually going to be looking at a case study for a hotel project that we incorporated BIM Link into our workflow. So this is a unique project in which we had 6 different buildings and over 700 units for guest rooms. It was a hotel project. And the more unique, even more unique part of this was that we had to get furniture counts for all of those units. So we had to make sure that when the owners ordered their furniture, such as their beds, their king and queen beds, their nightstands and everything, that they were getting the correct numbers so they weren't potentially like throwing away thousands of dollars. We had to make sure that all the numbers are correct. And doing that through typical Revit schedules wasn't going to be ideal. It didn't really give us enough flexibility to see all of our data. So the way we organized the project was we set up furniture groups that we populated the entire project with. So we actually had hundreds of pieces of furniture, thousands even, in our project, and we exported it through BIM Link. We also exported a lot of the parameters we were going to be using to organize this data. And at first, it gives you just this very dense Excel data sheet, which is actually something you can take apart and start to look at all of the details. So it wound up being 35,000 rows of data, which is a lot of furniture, but it only took 2 minutes to export. So it really was we were able to check a lot of these things very quickly. So with this, we used pivot tables in Excel, and we were able to really benefit from all of the Excel tools as well, in which we were able to filter from those parameters that we were able to export with BIM Link. We were able to double check a lot of our counts and see with Revit 2018, we were able to see our groups and what the furniture was in, which furniture was in which group, where numbers were off, and validate where our numbers were coming from. And then update it again. If we made a few changes to some of the rooms, we were able to export it all again in 2 minutes and have this all updated. So I have a video showing how that worked. So we were able, with the parameters that we were able to take out, we were able to filter by building and see what the totals were for each building. We were able to choose between the type of room, whether we were looking at the public spaces or the guest rooms, check what the furniture counts for each group was so that we had another validation in case one of them went wrong, and get totals. So we were able to see like how many queen beds we need, how many of those table lamps we needed to get for each room. So that was extremely helpful. And I don't know how long that would have taken us otherwise, but ID8 really came in handy with that. So cool. I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you, Lynn. And as we get into this next slide, we're going to be talking about Ideate Explorer. Ideate Explorer gives us a lot of insight into the models that we're working with. It significantly aids in model management, allowing us to quickly assess where issues may be for our design teams, and we can further advise them in areas where they can clean up during frequent model reviews. And the four main portions of Ideate Explorer that we use is the Explore, Navigate, Warnings, and Query. With Explore and Navigate, we're looking at the model and view elements of a project. With the warnings, we're getting an idea of the warnings and being able to prioritize how we're going to address them. And Query allows us to take those selection sets and narrow them down even further. And in particular with projects, we do model reviews frequently with teams, and we're looking for the real pain points within a project that are going to impact model size, sync times, and just in general keep models healthy and stable. And so right here, I can go into a project and I can immediately get an assessment of views that maybe aren't on sheets. And I know that purging that out, I can then delete it, sync, compact sync, and get an idea of the model savings and report that back to the team in our model review. Additionally, we have standards about not importing CAD. Importing CAD is very bad into Revit, and so we want to make sure that that standard is adhered to, so we can look into a project right away and notice if imported CAD is there, address it, and remove it. We also use it for compliance with our standards in terms of work sets. Right here, you're seeing a project that is in the process of reconciling a number of standards that they were not able to meet. And what we're doing here is you can see a clear breakdown of how you can sort by work sets and category. In this case, we're sorting by work set, and the work set's called core shell, but we can see some elements under there like casework, furniture, handrails, plumbing fixtures. Those don't seem like core shell elements to me, particularly. They seem more of a fit out. So we should address that, select those elements one by one, or as a group, and move them to their proper work sets. Additionally, as I mentioned about standards, we sometimes work with models that have existed for several years, and standards change in the office. And sometimes you need to address that quickly. And in this case, this was something where there's an example of a non-standard pen being used over 2,000 times in the model. It's very hard to address one by one, but with Ideate tools, I can narrow down my selection set to that pen 2 and switch it to the proper standard that I've now introduced in my project. This saves a significant amount of time, and also as this list slowly breaks down and we are only seeing the elements placed in our model, I can get a general idea of, are we adhering to standards, or there's still some areas to clean up. Additionally, warnings we know are an enormous issue in models, and as they build up, they can cause further issues and slowness in the model. And here's a great example of a team that was cleaning up some design options that purged in, and you can see these mullions that were overlapping with each other. Coupled with some of the Revit features of being able to create a section view, we can now narrow it down. The team can make the decision of which one of those mullions actually does need to get deleted and which one needs to stay in the model. And then finally, we also do a lot of BIM reconciliation with older projects where we are binding in information into the models. And as anyone that's done a bind will know, you lose your phasing and you lose your work set information. It all gets flattened. Working with the script that we made to assign the phase created, demolished, and the work set that the original element lived on, we're able to align those things in the model after the fact by selecting that set, changing that property. And that's also true for how we deal with our phasing. We can see that on here, Ideate's telling me that I've selected 600 elements that are original conditions, But if we go over and look at further narrowing it down with query and using that aligned phase created work set, we can see that those are actually 173 of those items are supposed to be new construction. So we'll go in, fix that, and address that. And those are just a few examples of how we use Ideate Explorer to really dive into our models and pick pieces apart. And so as we move on to the next phase, we just wanted to say thank you. I'm sure the rest of our team has nothing else to say, but I think.
So wrapping up, I think we have shown you how on different scales the tools help us promote efficiencies and productivity. And I think the challenge is to not only for our design team to use these tools, but actually disseminate this information on a day-to-day basis to our users, so that as they are tackled with challenges in Revit, they think in how we can, what process we can use to solve the problem, or save time on figuring out what's actually happening in the model. So the examples we gave is really our team using it, but I mentioned in the beginning that we regularly have lunch sessions repeatedly promoting the tool over and over again and trying to make sure that everyone is aware of the capabilities of Ideate and other tools we use and use it effectively in their day-to-day process. We're always there to help, especially with complicated, more challenging things to solve. But the primary objective we have is to put these tools in the hands of our users on their daily challenge and battle with Revit. All right, thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Nirva, and the team. I think that's fantastic. So other than the question I joked about that I always get about the recording, yes, this recording will be available. So if you do have some questions on what the CBT Architects team presented, please type into the question window and I will answer those as best I can. I did have a question for you, or for the team, is how often do you do those lunch and learn sessions? Are they every week? Are they like on Fridays every week, or are they every other week?
Yeah, we've tried at least once or twice a month. We really curate the content and make sure that we have participation, like case studies and participation by our project teams. So, and the theme is really to elevate the conversation and make them participate and give us feedback of how they're working, and we give them feedback on whether these tools are actually achieving what they need or what is out there new to look at, so, or what new feature is there that they haven't seen. So part of the, one of the challenges that there's proliferation of all kinds of things, that it's no longer just do you know Revit and how good are you in it. It's just so much other things happening around it that and the speed of our project delivery and deadlines is so fast that our employees don't have enough time to get trained to do something new. So we're trying to help them gain that time back by just meeting with them in groups and during lunch sessions to promote and quickly get them up and running to what's new. And we do most of the legwork in terms of research and learning and try to pass that information to our employees.
Yeah, I think it's, I certainly sympathize. It's always hard to, there's so much new information that's coming across our desk, our offices, and to synthesize that new information in a timely manner, it's a challenge for everyone. Yes,
exactly. It's the synthesis that we feel our role is that not all of the things are going to be helpful, and to let everybody on their own to go through and experiment and learn all these things, it's just not an efficient way of running an office, especially our size. So what we try to do is kind of streamline what are the big items and what are the big features and what are the most usefulness, and then make them start using, and then on their own they would determine other things. You know, once they're introduced and once they're embed these things in their workflows, they sometimes find things and let us know that is helpful for them. It's just the first step of trying to help them save time by quickly getting them up to speed, at least at the highlights of what these things can do.
Right. Well, it's good. We've spawned a lot of questions now. So for ID8 BIM Link, one of the questions that came in, I know you were showing the examples of where you were exporting the data to basically what I say review the data and manipulate it with the pivot tables. That's fantastic. So the question was, do you ever change information or update information in Excel and then import that back into Revit using ID8 BIM Link?
Yes, actually, and having the ability to see it in Excel is really helpful because we've been able to really see like all of that information all at once. So you can filter by it and see, oh wait, all of these, I don't know, some of this furniture is on the wrong work set. You can change it there and then import that back into Revit. And that really doesn't take all that long anyway, so that is really helpful as well.
Oh, great. And then this is I think a really good question. You probably don't have maybe an immediate answer, but I suppose with Ideate Explorer, you were talking about, auditing. And so the question says, how often or how many times per project does the team audit their model? Or is it, I guess I'm going to interject here. This is my own comment. Probably it's a constant thing, but if you have a comment on that.
Most teams we tend to find it is on a case-by-case basis, but we always encourage teams to compact sync weekly, audit your model weekly, and that's just the basic Revit features, but also clean up as well when you approach major deadlines. If a series of design options have sort of been decided on and they've been accepted, you should purge that information out of your project. And again, with ID8 tools, Explorer, maybe there's some stuff that I don't want to actually purge out. I know it's mainly place model elements, but perhaps there's some views and other things I want to keep. That's a good way to be able to look at that. But I think it's a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you. And then probably I shouldn't assume the answer to this, but someone is asking about if you've done like a return on investment exercise, like with the Xray tool, about how much time. I know you mentioned a couple times it saved you time, but you probably haven't looked at that specifically, or maybe recorded it each time. I guess they were just wondering if you had done a quick return on investment type of scenario.
Yeah, I think in all the tools we kind of do a rough estimate of the time. We don't record it per se. We're so busy trying to move these things along that recording those things are not that easy. Although, and for our team, I can record that, but for people in the project, in the thick of projects and groups, we have an idea of what that is as we meet with them regularly for model reviews, but we don't have exact data and evidence, but I do have a rough estimate, and that's what I use for our budgeting and projections for every year to show the return and to show the cost of each tool and kind of justify whether that's a worthwhile effort for us. And in the Ideate world, that's always 100% true.
Well, great. Well, here's another interesting question about that. You do the lunch and learn sessions, but someone was asking about like just the support and training on the Ideate Software website. Do you use the movies and the help that's inside the product?
Yeah, I think my team can respond better, but we use those for our own training. And then that's how we streamline the training we have to give to others. The challenge I was explaining is that not everyone in the firm has the time to just watch these videos because, like I said, we have 100+ applications we use. And if they're going to watch the videos for all the vendors of these applications, we could possibly have them work for 40 hours just watching the videos. So what we're trying to do is our team watches those videos, and Ruth can comment on this and kind of streamline what's the parts and pieces. And sometimes in our sessions, we run the videos, and sometimes we make our own. Go ahead.
So I personally have attended a few of the Ideate webinars in the past, and from those webinars, we take the things that we see that our users are having problems with that you've clarified, and then we can elaborate that better in person. We also find that sometimes sending a link doesn't have quite the same response as being there right in person for them to then ask a question and for us to then elaborate on top of it. So by us and our team going through and doing the legwork, we can then showcase the highlights and the parts that we think they'll have a hang up on.
Yeah, and one additional comment to Ruth is that we make it contextual to our project. It's kind of nice to see your videos, but it is really more effective to have to run your tools and show them live on our, for example, hospitality project. Here's what we did on this project. It just comes closer to home when they see that actually projects at CBT are using it effectively, and it's not just some vendor having a video and showing somebody else's project.
That makes total sense. You know, we have to, when we do the videos, be somewhat generic for, you know, all, whether it's architecture, engineering, and construction firms. So I think it makes total sense to, like you said, kind of take what maybe is in some of the online help or the videos and then tailor that or, you know, specifically look at that particular workflow and then customize that to your needs. So I think that's a great approach. Another question that was asked is, this is kind of interesting. Do you feel that the deployment and the IT of these add-on applications is an easy process? I know some people are concerned, as you said, you have over 100 different applications so that you're using.
Yeah, I mean, we have deployment tools for packaging your product and sending it over our network. So we have so many applications that we use products to help us deploy, but we have had no issues with your setup. It's fairly easy, but we do have other, you know, overlaying systems that help us do that. So I can't 100% say with only your packages it would be as easy, but it certainly has been very simple for our environment.
All right, excellent. Well, I believe that's most of the questions, unless people want to ask some more questions. And really good feedback here and feedback and discussion.
I saw one in there about it being possible to import schedules from Excel into Revit with BIM Link, which I believe is something you can do. And it's an interesting product that Sticky is a ID8 product that can bring your Excel files in as a schedule, and it maintains formatting. But a lot of the times the question is, what are you trying to get from that Excel file? Is it the data or is it the formatting? And if it's the data, you're probably still using BIM Link to bring that into it and embed it into an element within your model, as opposed to Sticky, which is, you know, maybe you have a landscape consultant not working in Revit, has a very nicely formatted schedule that you want to include in your set. You receive it from them and you use ID8 Sticky to embed it into your model, but that data doesn't necessarily live anywhere. It's not tagged to a particular element.
So, and one comment on the deployment is that I think the licensing system is very easy and very well set up. So recently having involved with trying to set up other tools which are far more complicated and far more treacherous than ID8 licensing setup is. So we are happy with that.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there with the difference between ID8 BIM Link and ID8 Sticky. ID8 BIM Link is all about the data and the data connection between Excel and the parameters and the elements within the Revit model. And ID8 Sticky is more about formatting. And as you mentioned, we call it the non-BIM data. So it's important to understand the differences between those two solutions. There is a question. I'll just go ahead and answer it. It's kind of a general question. It says, is the ID8 suite available for Revit 2020? And actually, we are in the process of rolling out our solutions. Revit 2020 was released just a couple weeks ago, about mid-April. And so we have our ID8 Explorer, our ID8 Sticky, and I think we're just about ready to release ID8 Apps, and BIM Link should be very shortly available. So the question is that everything should be available within the next couple weeks. I'll say use a conservative estimate. And so that means that we have our solutions that we're updating on 2017 through 2020. And that's a good question for the team at CBT Architects. Do you have multiple versions of Revit that you're using, or is it primarily you're kind of focused on one standardized Revit version?
Yes, due to the size of the firm and the multitude of projects and different realms that we work in, we are operating on 3 versions of Revit as it is right now. And through that, we are trying, excuse me, it's 4. I forgot that we just deployed a more recent version of it. But yes, we are always trying to keep teams within the latest version and migrate them further up when we can, so that there are fewer versions that we're keeping support on, and that we're also taking advantage of newer features that previous versions may not have.
Exactly. That's always a challenge, right?
Yes.
And our projects take years to finish, so some of them unfortunately experience full impact of 3-4 versions, which is really a challenge to do. But we try as best as we can to move along. But we have 4 versions running, and shortly we'll probably have 5 versions running. So we're usually a little bit cautious getting on a new version until everybody and everything is ready, including, like you said, your plugin is going to be ready in a couple of weeks. So we usually wait for a service pack, at least one service pack or something, so in order to dive in. But still, different projects have different needs, and sometimes they just don't want to upgrade and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's very typical. In fact, I was speaking to a firm, I think it was a couple days ago, and they were saying that they usually wait till the fall. And I think that's a very common answer, is they'll wait till the fall, or like you said, the first or second service pack from Autodesk before upgrading to the latest release.
Right. It's also challenging to support so many versions with so many plugins and so many different things where add-ons we use in, and then Revit has to communicate with a slew of virtual reality, augmented reality, analytics programs that we use for computational needs, shadow studies, whatever. And it's always a wait game. Do they have the version that supports this version? It's just, so if you have 4 or 5 versions, then you're even a bigger messy situation. So we try to limit the versions, but it's hard.
Well, I think that's most of the questions. And I know we had mentioned that this webinar was going to be a half hour to make it available for just people to get on with their busy day. So I definitely want to thank everyone there at CBT Architects. And basically, we as a software vendor, both developing and selling our Ideate software, when we work with clients or customers like CBT Architects, it's a real joy, because it's so nice to see the productivity and the improvements that they've experienced on their Revit projects, their Revit workflows, and giving us feedback as a vendor. It's just wonderful to see. And so really, it makes it a pure joy for us to be able to work with clients like CBT Architects.
Okay, great. Thank you, Richard. I want to thank you and Anna and everybody else who helped us putting this forward. It was a pleasure working with you all.
Yes. Thank you for everyone that chimed in on the comments too. Great questions.
Yeah, very much so. And I know this was even though this was one of your lunch and learn sessions, it takes a lot of work to prepare this. So appreciate it, and thank you to the team there at CBT Architects in Boston. And as we say, the Boston people and the firms are the best. I'm very biased.
Yes. Well, thank you, Richard.
We're used to success.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Very modest. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day, and thank you for joining the webinar.
You too. Thank you.